And so in the van ride back, the whole family, my 3 kids, my wife, myself, we're talking about what we need to do. And so that's when this idea was rebirthed. And I called Aunt Catherine. Aunt Catherine is back here in the black. Aunt Catherine has always managed to show up all the right times. When we were living in Hampton, Virginia, we got to spend time with her. And most recently, we had a chance to spend time with her during the Obama inauguration, the first one. And that was spectacular. So I called her. I said, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? She said, yes. And I said, okay, we're doing this. And so the concept is to her home church, and then to reunite her with Dad at Arlington National Cemetery, and then to have this concert that represented all of the features of the Penn women. The Penn women are professional artists, composers, and writers. And Mother is in all 3 categories. And so today what you're going to do, you're going to hear a piece that she composed in the 70s, but she couldn't finish it because she was too busy doing other things. And so she played it in New York. Is Mark here yet? Mark or Milena? Did they make it in? So what year? Hey, why don't you, there's 2 seats up here. Please come up. Because I need you guys have a speaking part that you don't know about. They come from the Buffalo chapter. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Yep, right up front. You bet.
Yeah, Mark has something from our parents for you also.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. And Milena is also one of the Penn women.
Yes.
And so is her mother.
Everybody, I'm a letters member, and we've been fortunate to be welcomed at the very beginning by Dr. Reid and Dr. Ryder. And I see Evelyn Wolford here, one of the presidents. And it's been quite a privilege. My mother was inducted and she invited me. So we've been honored to be invited here too. She gave a talk, and Dr. Reid welcomes from his open arms. And our parents did also. We went to New York over grew up. Mark and I went to GW there, and we feel so honored to know the Reid family. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're coming back to you. So we're going to do all 3 categories. So in your program, we're going to start off with a piece that most of you heard. If you watched the Super Bowl, it was performed at the Super Bowl this year. It's the poem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. There's some wonderful notes in the program session, but I'm going to ask the artist to actually tell you more about the history of that. I want to tell you about the artist. The artist, I met this artist years ago when I was the chief of staff at DTRA. DTRA is the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It leads countering weapons of mass destruction for the United States Department of Defense, and in many respects, we're also the lead agency for many things for the entire government. And the flag officers, the generals, and the senior executives were having a meeting, and DTRA was the host. And there was this incredible scientist making a presentation and blew all our socks off. I said, who is that? And it was I think he was a division chief at the time. He was a division chief down in the Chemical Biological Directorate. And I said, I got to know who that is. And his name is Eric Moore. And Eric Moore is a neuroscientist. And I think we may have another, Christopher Reid is a neuroscientist. And I know Angela would love to be a neuroscientist. And are there any other neuroscientists in here? He's a neuroscientist, and he's one of the top leading authorities in the United States government for ChemBio. He is here today because when he's a great friend. But when he heard what we were doing, I said, you play an instrument, don't you? He says, yes. And would you be willing to play a piece? And so we talked about it, and he suggested this piece, which I think is so timely for the day in which we live. And so with that, Dr. Eric Moore.
So I love Carl because he always delegates work to you. He's been doing it for years, but he's a dear friend of mine, as he said. So Lift Every Voice and Sing was written by James Weldon Johnson, who at that time was actually in Orlando, Florida. And in 1899, actually, he wrote it. So in 1900, there was something for children, and they had to have like I think it was, you would call it like an organizational day, and the children would actually come and they would sing this song. And so his brother Rosamond in 1900 actually set it to music. Now, the interesting part about this song is that they later went to New York and got involved in the Harlem Renaissance and some other things. But what was very interesting about it is the children in the South continued to sing it. So it spread throughout Florida, then throughout the American South, and then eventually throughout the United States, and became what we call now the Black national. Generally used, the lines of this song repay me an elation almost of exquisite anguish whenever I hear them sung by Negro children. This is James Weldon Johnson. Another thing we have in common, he was a member of my fraternity, and when I was a student at Fisk University, he actually had been a faculty member there. So there's the James Weldon Johnson house, which we used to go to. I hate to tell you that at that time we called it the Fish House because we would ride fish at this house, but it is a national monument. And so with that, I'm gonna play Lift Every Voice and Sing.
The next person is Natalia Chenko. Did I say that close enough? Yeah. Okay, she's kind. She is part of the Woodbridge Music Club. And the musicians that are here, many of them are from the Woodbridge Music Club. So Natalia, would you please come forward? Oh my goodness. And Evelyn, are you nearby? Could you come back up here, please? So, a couple of corrections. I'm learning to make lots of corrections these days. So in the notes, I refer to the local organizations as chapters. That is the wrong terminology. And so I learned today what the proper term is. It's branches. And when I heard the answer to why, I said, okay, that's important. We need to share that with the group tonight so that they understand actually the thought process and the rationale behind that. And but before I turn it over to you to say that, let me ask you a couple of questions, sort of an interview. Okay.
Oh dear.
Okay. So the Penn Women. How long has it been around? And do you remember the origins of it?
Oh, indeed.
Okay. Feel free to take your mask off. Breathe.
I do wear one of these all the time, especially with all this tree pollen. It helps.
Yeah.
The organization was founded in 1897. It is the oldest organization for professional women in the arts in the United States. We cover the arts, and our mission is to support professional women in the arts. And we are musicians, we are writers, we are visual artists. Anything, if it has to do with the arts, that's what our organization is all about. And it's all about educating these young people in the arts, making sure that art remains in our schools. Because all of us know what happens when they start cutting. And
The arts are the first to go.
it is tragic. And
Okay, so let me interrupt you because I want to. Do you remember what year it was founded in?
1887, 97.
1897.
Mhm.
Okay, and do you remember the one of the forcing functions? A certain famous British author was in town and invited folks up to New York City. Charles Dickens. Do you remember what happened to them?
Go ahead and tell it.
Okay. Well, I like this story.
I know.
I like this story because I couldn't believe how contemporary it is, or at least it was. So Charles Dickens, on a book tour, invited American authors to come to his book tour. You know, all part of the same team. And women authors were invited. And they went up to New York City to attend, only to find that it was being hosted in the New York City Men's Club. Now, on TV, you know, one of the old stations, they have the old sitcoms. There's an episode of Hazel where she enters a men's club. Anybody remember that one? And they go crazy because a woman's in the building. Well, in 1979, when I was in the Cadet Glee Club, we sang at the New York City Men's Club. And I didn't know all this history then, but it was still men only. And so the women said, hey, this isn't going to work for us. We need to form an organization that allows us to do the networking and the support that we need. And so that was one of the many forcing functions that led to the creation of this organization. Can you think of a couple of distinguished people who were members of this organization?
We had two presidents' wives, but Eleanor Roosevelt was a very, very enthusiastic supporter and member of Penn Women. And we have had Barbara Bush was a member of Penn Women. Hillary Clinton was a member of Penn Women. We have had numerous contemporary presidents' wives. And to tag on to the rest of that story, the women who were here in DC in 1897 wrote for the newspapers. They were magazine editors. They were contributors to magazines. And when they covered stories in the Capitol, they could not use any of the anterooms. The guys could go to the press room that was in the Capitol, and they could type up their stories, and they could get it out to their immediately, and the women had to go back to their buildings, wherever they might be, write up their stories, and of course, who got the story out first. And so they just got fed up with not having rights. It's been around a long time. And this was way before suffrage. So they were fighting for, they just decided, well, if we can't be in some of these other organizations, we'll just form an organization of our own. And Longfellow O'Donoghue was Henry Wordsworth's niece, and she was one of our charter members and the second president. So we have had some, well, illustrious writers, and we have a library upstairs full of books, and we have a whole side of the Vinnie Ream room full of poetry books by pen women. So, and this is just a sampling of what's out there.
Okay, one last question. She's not, I didn't tell her any of this was going to happen. So you're doing great. Cookie Roberts
Yes.
came and was a speaker at a biennium.
Yes.
Can you talk about what she said that was that left a lasting impression on you?
Oh, gosh, she said so many things. Good gracious. But to what are you especially referring?
Okay, yeah. So her trip to the Library of Congress or National Library, where she did the research and studied about the organization. And afterwards, she said something about not enough people knowing about it.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Well, and this is an example of how not well known this organization has been, because it was a bunch of women. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but I did. We have a room that we have devoted to a woman named Vinnie Ream. Hoxie was her married name. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Vinnie Ream. She was the she joined right after the organization was founded. So going back to 1898. And she was like Dr. Reid, a member in music and in painting and in letters. She sculpted, if you go into this room after this is finished, she sculpted the statue of Abraham Lincoln that's in the rotunda of the Capitol. She was the youngest person ever and the first woman to be commissioned by Congress to do a statue for the rotunda. She was 19 years old.
Is that incredible?
She was a prodigy. She played 5 musical instruments. She did Farragut in Farragut Square, right up here, 3 blocks south. And that's Vinnie Ream's work. And Farragut's wife was insistent that she be the one to do it. I mean, how many women of that age were sculpting at that level? Yeah, yes, indeed. So
She got his essence.
we highlight her because she was so prolific in all 3 areas, like Dr. Reid was, and so many people do not know about Vinnie Ream. And there's a picture of a bust that she did of Lincoln when she was only 15 years old. And it is amazing, and it's one of the main reasons that she received that commission to do the statue. And she has 3 others in the rotunda of the Capitol. And she died very young. She didn't marry until very late, and they had a son. But anyway, I just think she represents, in that one example, how overlooked women have been. And I'm not on the soapbox. I'm merely stating the facts.
Just telling it like it is.
Indeed.
Well, thank
Does
you.
that,
That is fabulous. That's exactly what I was hoping for, and better, and better.
thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to enter into Dr. Reid's first category. It's actually the second one that she entered, but it'll be the first one that we present tonight, and that is letters. And with that, I'm going to invite her granddaughter, her oldest granddaughter, Amanda Carter, to come forward.
Good evening. Here's a short introduction. The book, Grandmother's Shelf. When I was a teenager, I was tired of my grandmother's constant teaching and lecturing. One day, I retorted to her, "All you do is lecture me." And to avoid hearing more, I left the house and took a long walk. On my return, she said to me in a gentle voice, "All I do is lecture you, huh? All right. If you don't think you need my advice now, then put it on the shelf and take it down when you need it." I can now say that I have gone to that shelf many times for her advice to help me with the challenges I face and have faced in my life. Although she has been deceased for decades, I still miss her. I am grateful for all that she gave me. This story is about my maternal grandmother, Maddie Blakely.
Thank you. So in the program notes, you'll see write-ups on all the artists, and they're in alphabetical order, so you can find them as we go. The readers are in the last section. They give you a brief biographical sketch on them. What I didn't say, and I apologize, in the setup, was to say that Mom raised 6 kids, and she did a really great job. I'm biased, which says that. She did a great job. And I would introduce her to my friends, and my friends who were raising kids would want to know, tell me what you did that was so good, so helpful to you in raising kids. Because she was an Army wife, and she worked at the same time, off and on, throughout her career. And people would always ask her to tell her to write her memoir. And she was very hesitant to do that, because she knows that in the telling of the truth, you sometimes have to hurt people by telling the truth. And that's the last thing she wanted to do. And one day, the Lord inspired her, and she finally knew the way to tell the story. And the way to tell the story was to honor her grandmother, who shaped her. And so this book is a composite of the lessons that her grandmother taught her and how they helped her through life. And I will tell you that my dad was probably the most impacted by this book of anybody. And the reason is because it's also a history of my mom's life, which included her marriage. And Dad saw his entire marriage encapsulated in a few pages. And that was the magic. He could see from left to right. And he said, I got it. I get it. He sold more books than anybody. And more importantly, when he passed away, I knew that he was going to go to heaven. And nothing else mattered at all to me. Nothing. When I stood inside that hospital room, I could care less about anything. The only thing that mattered was my father was going to be in heaven, and I was going to see him again. And now the two of them are together. So with that, let's do the next presentation. And I think that is a tribute to her life in slides. Today, you're just going to see the video, but you're going to hear it. You're going to hear this unbelievable medley of songs that Grace put together. So as you watch those, she is going to set a different atmosphere this time. As awesome as that one last night was, and it was over the moon, this is a slightly different one, and it's a composition that she arranged. So with that, Grace, come on up.
see everybody.
See you. the artist in residence here. And I met him on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, you can tell that we've never done this before. So there's little details that we're working through and we're learning on the go. And so I knew that one of these was moving a particular piece of art from Texas here to be part of this concert. And so I blocked the whole day because I didn't know how much discovery learning there was going to be and how many mistakes we would make. So we came prepared with everything, right? We got the drill, we got the extension cords, we got everything except the knowledge. Well, Tim had all the knowledge. And Tim said something to me really, really awesome. Touched my heart, made me cry. How many years have you been here, Tim?
4 years now.
4 years. Tim, so the past president's photographs, portraits, are on the stairs going up. Third level. Well, you tell the story. So, no, let me ask you a question. Okay. So, when you look, how many pictures are there up there? Just rough.
25, 30.
25,
Probably, yeah. So it's a lot of them.
A lot of them. Okay. And most of you kind of know where I'm going, but that's okay. Play with me. How many black faces are there on that?
Just one.
Just one. My mother was the first and only to be elected. And Tim said he came after my mom's tenure. So Tim, tell everybody what you said. What went through your head? What were your thoughts as you would reflect on that as you go up the steps?
I kept seeing our eyes all the time, but when I met you, I saw her, and I was like, "Are you?" And we were like, "Yeah, I'm her son." And I didn't even know Miss Reid was your wife. Everything came together at the last minute, so it was a wonderful experience. But yeah, that wonderful photo of her upstairs, I would pass it all the time. Sometimes help Madeline bring up groceries or whatever needs to be done around the house, but I see her all the time. So yeah, that's how.
So he's an accomplished artist in his own right, and normally his stuff is on display as well, but he moved it so that we could have my mother's art up today. Once we unveiled it, he said, "We're not going to take it through the gallery." And I said, "I want to document this." So he said, "Yes, you need to document this." So I pulled out my camera, took a couple pictures with him in Carlton, and then I videotaped. And he said, "We're going to take this through the front door." Yeah. Okay. Now, if you know we're going to take it through the front door. And if you know our history, you know that we built most of these places, but we couldn't come through the front door. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it until it happened. I got it. I got it. And my mother painted this, because she's a mom, right? So instead of being a nice, 16 by 20, it's 5 by 6 feet, right? That's what moms do. But it was more than that. It was a labor of love. And by the way, Mike knows this. I had a hard time getting mom to do a portrait. I wanted her to do a portrait for me when I graduated from West Point. I couldn't get it done because she was busy doing all these other things. But then she took over a school, and she was running a school, and she needed a fundraiser. And so I said, "Mom, I'll commission you, and we can turn it into prints." And so we did. And Mike Meese was on the faculty at West Point, and he's the guy who helped my mother get the paintings, the prints, in all of the critical places so that when people wanted to buy West Point art, they could do that. And to this day, one of those is sitting in the cadet bookstore. And Mike Meese is the reason for that. So Tim, will you help do me the honors? This is the original. Can we have a round of applause? So we didn't show the whole video, but most of my mother's work is portraitures. She did still life, but most of her work was by commission. And those, of course, are scattered around the world. So we don't have those. We have a few in the slideshow, but most of her work belongs to the people. It's a pretty awesome piece of work, isn't it? Yeah. Now, also, there's other pieces that are here. When you entered in, there's a still life. I call it a chafing dish. I don't know what the real name is, but what's spectacular, I'm only going to talk about, there's several other, my brother Christopher drove several of those pieces here overnight from Texas to be here. And oh my gosh, when I saw this when I got here, I nearly lost it. Because he's the one who took care of my mom. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the keeper of her legacy. And so he made sure that they came safely. So there's, for the art lovers, today we have, and I'm not an artist, but to do metallic, you can buy metallic paint now. But in Mom's day, you didn't use metallic paint. You used regular paint, and you made it look like metal. And when you walked in the door, you saw that chafing dish, and the hallmark of that chafing dish is it looks like it's brass, or copper, excuse me, copper. It looks like copper. In this, these buttons look like brass. And it takes a lot of mastery to do that with non-metallic paint. It was a gift that she had. She could do that. Other people couldn't. And then the other thing that's on here, Psalms 139. I need somebody who can Google Psalms 139 real fast, because I'm not going to get it right.
You've searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go for your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. Pretty awesome chapter, right? This was painted from a photograph taken during graduation week. And what's interesting to me is that the process still was the same. This is graduation for a soldier. This is at Trophy Point, overlooking the Hudson. The title is Beyond the Horizon. And what's beyond the horizon? Your future. You don't know what's in your future. During the Vietnam era, cadets graduated and died in Vietnam. During the Civil War, they graduated and died during the Civil War. You don't know your future. And what the Lord did for my mom is she captured, in this case, my mom's heart, entrusting me to him for whatever was beyond the horizon. Amen. So beyond the horizon, beyond the horizon.
Well, I had the privilege of being accepted into the McLean Symphony through Dingwall Larry. he was an African American composer, and he passed away December 31st. And so, anyways, so when we play, I think of him, and so it's just an honor to be able to play with such excellent musicians. King, who's an oboist, and a part of him playing symphony for many years, as well as his longtime friend Nancy Colfax. And he's a flute and violist. So she's multi-talented. So we're gonna play some classical pieces for you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Next is Maya, my cousin Maya, and she's going to read the next section from the book. And Maya is an attorney, graduate of Howard Law School.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, so nice. Thank you. This section is called God Will Make a Wonder Out of You. To follow in God's paths is to be washed in the blood of the Lamb, Jesus, who will make you a beautiful, shining example to others. Grandmother was right. Everywhere we have lived, people ask me the secret of rearing a good family. I tell them that bringing up a family by the word of God brings fulfillment. Putting Jesus first in all life endeavors is a guarantee for good outcomes. Grandmother said this often: God will make a wonder out of you. This is what others have said to me in different words. Associates have asked about the secret of my parenting to produce such a family of achievement. I have replied that it was the blessing of Jesus Christ. This is the reference that came up earlier in an interview I gave, which inspired this book. The university official conducting the interview remarked that she could see the divine hand of God running through the family's record of accomplishments, and she credited that to my grandmother, who had a love for learning and imparted that love to me. That was revelatory. However, it was grandmother's reliance on the Lord that was the family key to success. The fact that all 6 of my children survived their youthful years and the serious challenges in adulthood is a marvel. Observers have mentioned, you and your husband have 6 wonderful children. None are on drugs or incarcerated. An Andre Crouch song fits here. This is the Lord's doing.
Amen. Okay, Buffalo, you're up. Come on up, please. Every organization has its challenges, and this one was no different. The story goes, there was money sent to the national headquarters that belonged to the Buffalo branch. And it was illegal for the organization to keep it, and it needed to go to the branch. My mother had just become the president and said, that is what we're supposed to do, so we should do it. So she sent it back. And your mom was part of that branch, right?
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Our mom would pizza one of them.
So can you tell us what it was like from their perspective when the money came here and not where it was supposed to go? And how it was left to you guys? Talk about that.
I'll tell you just a few sentences, give you a background. When we came to the Penn Women, my brother and I were students here, and we were working downtown also, and our parents came to see the Penn Arts building. And I told you Dr. Reid welcomed them, along with Dr. Ryder. Well, Dr. Reid took a picture with our mom, and they sat together, and Dr. Reid said to me, I know your mother is a very special person, because she saw how our mom, so dignified, and with Dr. Reid, both took a picture like they were the Penn Women. Anyway, Dr. Reid went and invited my mom and me to come to a board meeting that they were having to work on a special arts project, because our mother is, like Dr. Reid, extremely talented in the fine arts, the oil painting, watercolor, many mediums. Anyway, she was so honored, and she also invited me to come to help too. I'm a letters member, writer. And we sat at the board meeting, and Dr. Reid invited the lawyer who was handling some of this work about the money. And they explained and read the part of the will of the lady, Miss Olga Lindbergh. And in it, she just very basically stated she wanted money to be left, scholarship money of her estate, for the Penn Women and the Association of American Women in Colleges and Universities, to disseminate amongst people who lived in Western New York. And why? I think because she wanted to empower them. And not only that, but she wanted it in the arts, like what Evelyn Wolford mentioned. She wanted kids to be able to learn the discipline in school. So she was a modest lady, but she had accumulated about $1 million to leave for scholarships. So she was a forward thinker, but she was also a modest person. And so it's no easy feat for her to leave that money. And I think Dr. Reid recognized that too. And Dr. Reid didn't want people in the organization to get a little bit like thinking that they would spend it on things like, when some people spend before they have it. And they thought, a lot of them, that there was no branch. But my mom and I belonged to that branch. So my mom looked at me and she said, "Don't get up. I'm going to get up." So she literally rose to her feet and she said to everybody, "I represent the Buffalo branch, and there is such a thing, and we need that scholarship money." So our mom helped Dr. Reid to help everybody else not be tempted to take that money, because it was the wishes of the lady in a very simple, basic way to empower the people in our region who may not generally get to places like Washington, D.C. So that's what the story is in a nutshell. And things turned out well. And even the university women got their $500,000, so it was almost $1 million. And when our mom went back to Buffalo, Dr. Flickinger, Bonnie Flickinger, who is both members of both organizations, and her mom is like a real legacy person also. She's a famous artist in our region. Well, she had a big dinner, and our mom was the guest of honor, and they gave her a big bouquet of roses to thank her for bringing the money back to kids who can really use it. So Dr. Reid is part of that, and then our parents went and invited Dr. Reid to come to Buffalo to see our branch and all the impact it made. So it's kind of a full circle thing and all about love and caring and friendship. So we're happy to be here to illustrate that. And I think Mark has something from our parents that he wanted to share, if it's all right. Is that okay with you, Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our parents are very Christian-oriented people also, and they believe in prayer and love.
And on behalf of them and to the Strands and the Reid families, thank you so very much for including us in your lives and for the celebration of Dr. Bernice Reid, because she was really such an inspirational figure for all of us, and a really dear friend, and welcomed our mother into this, and Melena into this prestigious organization. And so we're very humble and grateful for that opportunity. And before we left to come out here, it's, our parents would have loved to have been able to make it here tonight, but they are unable to, so we're representing them. But before as we were getting ready, our father put together very quickly a message that he wanted to convey to the Reid family, and asked if we could read it. So on behalf of our father, Larry, and our mother, Lubitsa, I'll read this to you, as it is. And this is the first time I'm reading it, so but it says, "To the family of Bernice Reid, Dr. Bernice Reid, my wife, Lubitsa, and I were delighted to tour Bernice around the Buffalo area when she visited some years ago. We see that she was an avid student of the Bible. Soon after her visit, I composed the first, and so far the only, poem I have ever written. It is centered around the Bible. It seemed appropriate to dedicate it to her during the celebration of her life. All our love to Bernice's family, Lubitsa and Larry Wino." And here's the poem our father wrote, titled, "If I Could Rewrite the Bible." If I could rewrite the Bible, would I outline an easier plan? Would I move the scene to Tahiti instead of some rock-ribbed desert land? Would I have Saul travel to Damascus in a late model turbo sedan? Or have old Jonah's finger
merely stuck in a tuna fish can. If I could rewrite the Bible, would I change what the stories say? Turn all the tears, the struggle, the strain into a comedy play? Replace the lyrical psalms of King David with some terse and trendy sound bites? Change Jesus' thorn crown to a sweatband, Daniel's den to a kitty cat fight? No, I can't rewrite the Bible. It stands there, a fait accompli, to teach us the art of survival in a turbulent, unstable sea of conflicting ideas that challenge us on every hand. To spotlight the rock of salvation on which we can sturdily stand. To guide us through difficult moments with inspired chapter and verse that no matter how bad things seem to face us, to others, they even seemed worse. To prove that God's power to help us is not just some theory or myth, but practical help at each moment to assure each human need is met.
Wow.
And I'd just like to say our grandfather, our dad's dad, Carl Julius Warno, he would have been so proud that we knew you. Because in looking at your slides, you exemplify the same family that we've had too. Such a extended and close, yet close-knit family.
Wow.
All of our extended family would like to know about you also, and some of them do know. Our grandfather passed away, but he would have loved to have known you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna close this section and do the intermission with a song that my mother composed. It's called The Rainbird. And you can read the story in the notes, so I won't go into that now. But Melena, I believe you had exposure to the Rainbird already?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Oh, I remember we invited Dr. Reid over one night when our parents were visiting around the time, I think, of the biennial, if I'm not mistaken, in 2004. But we had taken her out for dinner, and it was the five of us, and we had her come over to the apartment that Melanie and I were renting at the time, and we had a little piano, electric piano, which we still have, and we were talking about music because we're really incredible devotees of music, and
hats off to all the musicians. That's amazing.
With sincere appreciation to everybody who performed tonight. But we were talking about composition, and Dr. Reid said she had an idea of a bird, of a melody that a bird sang that got into her head one morning, and that she was in the midst of working a composition on it. And she played just a few notes of it, just a kind of thought, to share with us. And that was very special for us that she wanted to share that moment and that work that she was working on.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because this will be the first performance of the finished work arranged by Grace. And Grace, can you introduce your trio?
Yes, we have I call her Deborah Madsen. She's a coloratura. She's with the Woodbridge Music Club. And Andrew Agdochian, he's a countertenor. He's from New York City, and he came down to do this.
Sing and praise the Lord, for His mercy
with that, let me introduce Andrew. As Grace already said, he's a countertenor. And for those of you who've never heard a countertenor before, you probably had your ears and eyes in surprise mode. The first time I heard him, I immediately remembered Jesse Norman. Jesse Norman is one of my favorite all-time opera singers. And he has that same tenor, that same substance to his voice. And I just love it. So with that, over to Andrew.
So for the first song, it's titled Iya. I'm originally from Nigeria, and that song is representative of Nigeria. It was written by a composer so many years ago, and he dedicated it to his mother. But it was originally written for a baritone. At that time, nobody really thought so much about the countertenor. So the song describes his mother, a mother who watched me grow up, mother who fed me when I was hungry, and at the end of the song, he just prays for his mother. Enjoy. So the next song is in German. I'm not going to go into details, but it's titled "You Are My Peace." So. And the final one is if I can help somebody. From all the stories that we told today, I mean, I think this song just absolutely relates to Dr. Reid. So I hope you enjoy this. This is, for me, one of the most beautiful piece of music. If I can help somebody as I pass my
believe you're up.
Hello, I will be reading a section from Grandmother's Shelf titled On Labor and Industry. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with your might. This is the best way to determine how to spend time doing worthwhile pursuits. I have used this approach in studying, taking care of my family of 6, teaching school, learning music, art, cooking, doing philanthropic activities, being a housewife and military spouse, being a true friend, church worker, choir director, accompanist for 2 chapels, and ambassador to other countries while chaperoning exchange students and doing study abroad. Another version says, do your best. That is what you'll get from it, satisfaction and rewards that grow. Since the age of 7, I always wanted to be an artist. The itinerant art teacher who came to our elementary school did not encourage me. I tried to get her attention, but she seemed to pay no attention. In God's own timing, that wish was fulfilled. God gave me the desire of my heart 36 years later. Like Grandmother emphasized, God will give you the desires of your heart when you walk uprightly before Him. It is His good pleasure to give good gifts to His children. Thank you.
The next reader is Crystal Baker Gill. Crystal is our cousin. Her mother is here, Aunt Frances. Here she is, right in the back. And I have so many fond memories of visiting them when they lived in Chester and we were in Bloomsboro. And she works in the nonprofit space, doing incredibly important work, and we're so honored to have you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I need glasses to read, so I'm gonna put these on. All right. I'm reading a passage from the book entitled Relationships with Your Fellow Man. The respect grandmother taught me to have for others, the modesty in speech and dress, self-discipline and etiquette gained me success as a worker in my church, high school, apprentice secretary to a nonprofit executive, college student, military wife, mother, and mother-in-law. My training opened doors to great opportunities for me, of which I could not have known anything beforehand. In an apprentice program for commercial secretarial students, I was recommended by my business teachers to work for a nonprofit executive in a civic and community organization. I had hoped to work for a lawyer. The nonprofit organization was not able to afford the stipend I was to receive. Because of philanthropic purposes of the organization and the dedication of the director, I decided to stay and give the position my all. It turned out that this woman was related to a college president. She told him about me, and that contact led to a position of a student labor clerk in his office. After talking to my high school counselor about the college that he highly recommended, I decided to go there. Without the requisite funds, but faith in the Lord and my training, I believed that I could work my way through college. Because I couldn't find a lucrative position the summer after graduation from high school, that was the only option open to me. That decision to work there gave me a new life and different goals. During the first semester, the Dean of Women selected me to serve on the Women's Senate. The members of that group were to serve the college as hostesses for meetings and receptions. I was surprised and pleased. One of the roles I was privileged to play was that of military wife to my husband. After some time observing other senior officers' wives and reading the book, Army Wife, I complied with the first request received to chair the telephone tree for the battalion wives. Although it was a low job on the totem pole, it turned out to be an important one. It helped me to become acquainted with all of the officers' wives in the unit, and it served the commander's wife. Proverbs 27:18 says, one who takes care of a master, and my grandmother added, all those who have rule over you, will be honored. In sum, I was glad to assist my husband in a proper way and to represent him in conduct and in dress. In the course of our lives, I was elected to 2 officers' wives clubs as board member and officer, and as the chairman for 35 welfare projects in the Canal Zone. One of the projects included visiting and celebrating the birthdays of the inmates of the oldest continuing leprosarium in the Western Hemisphere. It was an opportunity to see firsthand the ravages of the disease that was referenced in the Bible, which necessitated quarantine from the rest of society. Because of the condition of the inmates, I had to make a decision about publicizing the benevolent activities of the Officers' Wives Club in Panama. While I conducted the administration of the welfare projects, men from the Public Information Office would accompany me on special events. At first, I was unaware of the publicity that would be generated and that the efforts of my committee would appear in the Panamanian news the next day. When I did learn of this, I chose not to include pictures of monthly celebrations with the lepers. That decision generated a threat to my chairmanship. My sub-chairman, who asked to run that project, scheduled public information to take photographs at the leprosarium. When I asked to cancel the photography, she resigned angrily. She was the wife of an up-and-coming battalion commander. She also had influence over the wives of officers under her husband's command. The worst of the incident was that she soured my relationship with the medical staff of the leprosarium somehow, and she devised another way to get publicity. She forbade the wives on my committee to continue and asked them to resign with her. One of my neighbors and a fellow Christian apologized for having to leave. I told her not to worry. And in a prophecy that came to me in a flash of insight and to my tongue, I told her that she would one day be the battalion commander's wife. I can say that God has a sense of humor when solving problems and exonerating his children, or at least I think so. The commander's wife took 2 wives to the leprosarium one evening to sing for the inmates and the staff. Sure enough, there was publicity. Her photograph, along with those of her attendants, appeared next day under a misplaced caption. It read, "Prostitutes arrested at the bar." On the opposite page, the 3 prostitutes' photographs appeared under the caption, "3 officers' wives sing in the leprosarium an evening event." I didn't see the newspaper until I went to the monthly Officers' Wives Club, where women were giggling and discussing the articles, which they happily showed me. I laughed too, but was glad that I had done nothing and couldn't have done anything to bring this comeuppance. The prophecy did come true. The commander lost his battalion in the jungle during worldwide practice maneuvers, and he was relieved on spot. The woman who I had prophesied become battalion commander's wife that day, her husband, the executive officer, was promoted to battalion commander. Again, I had no knowledge of that until I went to another scheduled meeting.
Amen. Okay, the next piece is a piece that Grace composed for the Lincoln Bicentennial. And you've already heard from Evelyn who Benny Reid was and is. Many people, by the way, think she's a man because Zinni is a short nickname for Elvenia. So when they go see the statue, they don't understand it. Grace, you want to say anything before you play?
Yeah, real quickly, this book that Ken woman Maureen Sape wrote about her life, I read it the letters to inspire me to write a song to honor this sculptress. And in a dream, the Lord gave me a motive. Let's see. And that's the little drummer boy drumming on one side of the Civil War and the North, and then the South echoes it. And then also listen for her sculpting. You'll hear this constant. And that symbolizes Lavinia Day sculpting Abraham Lincoln. And so listen for those, and I'll play it. And this is only the first movement.
The sky shall behold uncharted his entrance. The stars shall applaud him with thunder and praise. The sweet light
This is the end of the program. And so what we like to do is bring out all the artists and the readers. I thought we were gonna do one more piece. Are we so, we're not gonna do the readers that take once?
We should.
That's okay. I think we're at the end. So let's bring all the artists out and thank them.
We don't have an encore.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the refreshments. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you. And thanks to the artists again.